Hey guys, it's Doc Vinyl again. No music today. So I'd like to go over a couple of new things. I'm going to have a new series start, the R&R series. It's going to be called Ranting and Raving. And this one is going to be about. I hope you guys like it. But before I start, I'd like to see some more comments. I saw some last week that was cool about the supergroups, and some ideas for new shows would be great. I hope to see some more comments. Definitely some more likes and subscriptions would be great. If you guys could like the content, keep it coming. It just helps support the channel and get me going, and some good ideas. Maybe get a guest person or two. I might have my cousin come down. He was in a band. We talk about punk rock. Other people. It'd be kind of fun just to expand the show in the area and see what happens. All right. That's my public service message for today. Today's episode is Rant and Rave, Rock and Roll Hall of Shame. What's that all about? Well, the Hall of Shame is I'm going to go over 15 bands and artists that are not in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they really should be. These are all eligible people that could be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and have been snubbed for various reasons. We're not even going to... Well, for a minute, I'll have to talk a little bit about the actual Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know we're all music lovers. I think it's a farce. I think a lot of the criteria and the material in which they choose a band to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is resemblance to Teen Beat magazine. What is ever the most popular and fun, wokey, whatever they think it is, stuff at the time. It doesn't really have any real preponderancy upon what was impactful in rock and roll, when it was rock and roll. The other fact, what is rock and roll? You got rap bands in there and hip hop. Is that rock and roll? Well, if you want to say that everything goes back to R&B and jazz, sure, I guess that could be everything. Put country acts in there and what have you. But they got to draw the line, which they haven't. They draw the line in certain areas. And there is definite prejudice in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Two areas, right off the top of my head, that are prejudiced against. One, progressive rock, and two, heavy and hard rock and heavy metal. They very rarely put bands in, and when they do, it's sparingly. And the bands I'm going to be talking about, some of them are in that category, are major mega bands. Now, the three criteria were: was the band impactful? Did they sell a lot of records? And did they have a decent live show? And that kind of stuff. So those are kind of like the three things supposedly. People like Chris Gow and others that are various critics. I'm sorry, they're just assholes, all right? They're just, I don't like this, I don't like that. Here's the point. If you are going to be put into a position like that, you need to look at everything. Whether or not you like it or not, it should not be a factor whether or not you choose they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's stupid. So I just choose all bands. I have a really good mix here of bands and reasons why they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Trust me, they're not all prog bands, they're not all rock and roll. Look at Steve Winwood here. And various other bands. Even some bands that are on the cusp of funk and they haven't included, which is like, what? And I did a little research on who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And again, it's very political. It's almost to a point where it's disgusting. So let's start off with some of these members that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, Steve Winwood is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame under Traffic, rightfully so. But he should be for his solo career. And the reason why his solo career should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm showing one of his biggest albums, Back in the High Life, he had a series of great hit albums, besides the fact that he played in Blind Faith as a solo artist, or in a band, actually, and he played in Ginger Baker's Air Force, he played on Jimi Hendrix's album, so his impact in rock and roll, Eric Clapton's in it for 3 times, I think Steve Winwood should at least be for twice, and definitely for his solo career. You guys don't agree? Let me know. Comment section's all about that, but Winwood definitely deserves to be in there beyond Traffic, and his impact on rock and roll is immense. The man was singing Give Me Some Lovin' when he was 15, 16 years old in the Spencer Davis Band, and all the way to now, he just released albums really recently. He still tours, sells out, and his impact, he fits all 3 criteria. Closed case. Next person, Jethro Tull. Okay, come on now. The one I'm showing, Aqualung. Okay, one of the biggest hit albums of the 70s. Nevermind Thick as a Brick and various other albums that he's done. Jethro Tull, why isn't he not in? Now, this is considered prog rock, and again, I told you the prejudice against it is against prog rock. We all know the song Aqualung. Come on. It's Aqualung. His impact, he uses the flute. One of the first musicians to use a flute in rock and roll. I'm sure people didn't like that. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know. Did he sell a lot of albums? You betcha. Did he go on tour? You betcha. Tours sold out. Impactful. Has he impacted and influenced musicians from then? Of course he has. Most definitely. And this is a band that's been, they've been eligible for a long time. And they're entering other bands in there like Oasis. Now, Oasis is a great band, don't get me wrong, but seriously, these guys have been around much longer. And let's start giving some love to some of these older bands. Okay, so Jethro Tull. Gold and platinum records, definitely. Next album, totally platinum seller. Supertramp. Really? Oh my God. Very unique band. Very unique voice of David Hodgson. I already did this band a couple weeks ago, as you all know. They've had quite a few big sellout albums. This was one, Breakfast in America, Crisis What Crisis, even in the Quietest Moments, Give a Little Bit. I mean, they use it in commercials. I mean, very, very popular, very, very influential band. Great songwriting, sellout tours, great live album in Paris. Seriously, why are they not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Again, a preponderancy and prejudice against prog. And they're not even considered completely prog, too, because a lot of this stuff is got poppy, catchy tunes. It's raining again. I mean, that's not a prog song. But that's their beginnings. And again, whether or not this band should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is uncontested. They definitely belong in there, okay? As is the next band, another proggy band. Styx. Oh my God, how many platinum and triple platinum albums did this band have? Including this one, Grand Illusions, Paradise Theater, Pieces of Eight. Need I go on? There's many more. Styx, definitely. A staple in the 1970s. Arena Rock, great American band from the central United States. Great rock and roll sound. Beautiful textured music. Again, proggy. Their roots were very proggy, lots of keyboard. But did they sell out shows? You betcha. Huge shows. Very influential, played on the radio, yes, lots of radio airtime. So Styx, there's no question on this one, okay? Now when we start getting to other bands here that are going to be a little bit less familiar to some of you, but definitely still important. The next band is Squeeze. Squeeze is a British band that came up in the late 70s, early 80s, lots of big hits. Black Coffee in Bed, Pulling Muscles from a Shell, Tempted by the Fruit of Another. A very kind of cool, kind of 60s-esque Motown feel. Very big band, beautiful music, very influential in the new wave, very influential in the mod scene. Very, very big band. Squeeze was very big on both sides of the pond. Should they be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You bet. I mean, before some of these other acts. Were they influential? Yeah. In the new wave scene, Squeeze was probably one of the biggest college bands. I remember going to college in the 80s. They were played by everyone. Everyone had the Squeeze greatest hits. Really, really big album. Big stuff. Squeeze definitely belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or at least a nomination. A lot of these bands haven't even been nominated, which is just pathetic, especially when they nominate other bands. Again, Squeeze is not prog. This would be kind of a characteristics as new wave, 80s music, I suppose, late 70s, what have you. Again. All right, back to prog. We won't even get into this one. King Crimson. Seriously? Probably one of the most influential 1969 albums to influence music altogether. King Crimson, Court of the Crimson King. We won't even get into all their other music and the influential stuff, the use of sounds, how Kurt Cobain from Nirvana loved the album Red, influenced him for guitar sounds. You gonna tell me this band wasn't influential? I'm sorry, the critics are on crack. They're fucking morons. They're obviously not looking at music linearity, the linearity of bands like this. Influence came along far beyond influencing Nirvana, influencing all that heavy guitar sound that they all love. Bands like Def Leppard because they sold more units. Now granted, they were not a big seller, but they were always on tour. They played, they put out a prodigious amount of work, and they were excellent at what they did. They were some of the best and tightest prog rock, and they really introduced a lot of new material to a lot of different people, and they really were pioneers in their field. Not even interested, because it doesn't fit their criteria of, Teen Beat magazine, basically. That's how they're choosing. Another band, another proggy band in the case. As you were doing, I'm doing this reverse alphabetical, by the way. Kansas. Seriously? Another band just like Styx. And a couple others I'm going to be doing. Kansas, big hits, besides the fact of Carry On Wayward Son and Dust in the Wind, which are two major 70s staple hits on the radio. They have many other songs. They're great live show, lots of albums, prodigious output of work, and many different members in the band over the years, and they influenced a whole generation of guitar and keyboard players. I'm sorry, American band from the Midwest. Seriously, Kansas, not even nominated. Really? But Jay-Z is. I don't see the logic in that at all. Again, like I said, it's not based on it. Next band. Let's get into something a little different now, huh? Why have they put on all these hip-hop stars, but they haven't done the man himself, Rick James? Oh my God. They ripped him off. What's it, LL Cool J? Down. I'm sorry. That's his song. They took the bass line from I'm sorry. They took the why did I all of a sudden just give blank it up to you? They took a bass line to oh god, why did I forget the song, man? I can't even read it. Oh my god, I can't even remember. I'm so fired up because I was getting so fired up that I couldn't even remember. Super Freak. I'm sorry, Super Freak. Oh my god, how can I not remember? I have a lot of Rick James albums. Great bass player with the Rick there. What are we dealing with here? Why isn't Rick James in there? You know why? Because his later days in life before he died, he kind of had some drug problems, some issues, and some problems and what have you. People just whatever. But you cannot deny the impact on hip hop and rap this man had. He was the link between funk. Without him, you don't have Prince. I'm sorry. Without him, you don't have all the hip hop sounds and everything. They sampled and stole from this man. And I'm sorry. I'm a very adamant believer that Rick James belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame predominantly. And this is just plain prejudice against a musician that really impacted rock and roll and impacted funk, impacted hip hop, everything that we have today. And I'm sorry, without him, a lot of musicians would not be where they are today. So, did he sell out? Oh, you bet. Shows were amazing. Rick James was the man in the late 70s, early 80s. Moving on. How about the Jam? Well, the Clash are in there. The Sex Pistols are in there, and they had one album. The Jam have a series of albums. You know why the Jam aren't in there? Because they didn't have the huge career in the United States. They were bigger in Great Britain. But you know what? That does not negate the fact that they were influential. Mod scene, punk, the whole thing. It was the three big bands I used to remember as a kid. The Clash, right? That was the big one. The Ramones and the Jam. Very, very big, okay? These were very big bands. Sex Pistols were up there too, but they had one album. I mean, what kind of breadth of work is that? That's one album. These guys had many albums between In the City. I mean, amazing. This is a great set, by the way. This is like amazing. Highly recommended if you want to get into the Jam. This is the way to go. I have a lot of the solo stuff too, but this is amazing. Now, granted, they had a lot of EPs. Jam, got them right here, baby. The Jammies, they're awesome. But seriously, this was a great, great band. They influenced a whole series and string of people. I don't even want to get into who they influenced. And a lot of musicians today, they're not even considered, not even nominated. And again, a prejudice. Again, did they sell out? You bet. In the United States, not as much. But they sold out all in the UK. And they sold out some here in the shows in the United States. They did some touring. They were only together from 78 to 82. So you're only looking at about 4 or 5 years. But they put out a prodigious amount of work, and they were influential. You got bands like MC5 and the Stooges. MC5 put out, 2 albums, 3 albums? That's it. I mean, the Stooges did off and on, and they had Iggy Pop and what have you. But my point is that you got bands like this, just as influential. Again, not cool, not the Teen Beat magazine or whatever. Who knows the reason why they didn't pick the Jam? Ridiculous. Here's a band that's been nominated. It's not going to get in. And, of course, one of the biggest sellout heavy metal, hard rock shows in the world, Iron Maiden. Love the Trooper. Great band. Ever since the mid-70s onward, they're probably one of the biggest heavy metal acts. Or hard rock. I don't like to use the word heavy metal, but they're not. It's great music. Metallica gets in. Yeah. No Iron Maiden? Definitely no Metallica. I'm sorry. Judas Priest, they keep teasing them. There's the same type of band here. Iron Maiden, they had sellout shows. Amazing sellout shows. Sellout albums. They've sold many, many albums worldwide. Every show. They have some of the biggest touring schedules in the world. Why isn't Iron Maiden in there? Again, a prejudice against hard rock. Okay, they let him in one at a time. But they're gonna put Madonna in there. Oh yeah. For what reason? Seriously. So basically, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is really not rock and roll. It's just like the pop Hall of Fame. Really, pop music is what they should call it, because that's what it is, really. Another band, Vorna, a band I covered many times. Why a foreigner in them? Well, again, they never liked this band. This was considered a stadium rock band, a creative band. It doesn't matter what the band's origins were. Were they impactful? You bet. Their first 3 albums sold triple platinum all over the place. This album was amazing. Hit after hit after hit. And never mind Foreigner 4, because it's a different lineup by then. But seriously, what a band. Why isn't Foreigner in there? Why haven't they even considered or nominated? Again, Journey is. If you had to consider Journey versus Foreigner, just because that one song, Don't Stop Believing, they had a string of hits, Foreigner. Foreigner's just as influential. But again, the prejudices against it, their stadium rock, their corporate rock, or whatever they're calling it. Again, these are, what? Journey's not corporate rock? Come on. So, that's what they're going to use. Foreigner, definitely. Next band, the Arrhythmics. You got all these other minor bands, Devo, but not the Arrhythmics. I mean, come on, she had 3 or 4 great things. Annie Lennox has an amazing voice in rock and roll. Great keyboard work by her husband. Just an amazing, amazing band. All their albums are great. Not too bad on the eyes either. But she's just an amazing musician. Her songs are very impactful. She had, Don't Stop the Rain. I mean, oh my gosh, she just had so many really, really good hits. Quite a few in the 80s. It's electronic music. Again, will they be considered? I think they get a chance, but I don't know. I haven't seen them on a nomination list yet, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they haven't got to it. People like Blondie and others are definitely in, but she is definitely in that second wave after Blondie. Big MTV star too, if that counts. Who knows? Next band. No, it's going to be no surprise to you. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Seriously? Well, we already know why they hate Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They hate talent, obviously. Everybody that's interviewed everyone has considered this band one of the biggest snubs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 3 guys that produce music of 20. Yes, are they bombastic? You bet your ass they are. What is in rock and roll not bombastic and over the top? That's what rock and roll's all about. Did they do crazy shit? Yeah. Chris Gow didn't like them. Thought they were vacuous. Didn't have any real talent. All they did was just play real fast. That's bullshit. Come on, pal. They incorporated classical music like no other band did in rock and roll. We don't even have to talk about the virtuoso qualities of Keith Emerson, Carl Palmer, and Greg Lake's voice. And he also threw in a couple hits. I mean, from the beginning, Lucky Man, Welcome Back My Friends, The Show That Never Ends. I mean, come on, these are staples of the 70s. These guys sold out. They were number 3 after Led Zeppelin and the Stones and the Who. Number 4 on the touring schedule in the 70s as the biggest band to tour. And you're going to ignore them? Platinum albums, shitload of them. Lots of hits and hits in the radio hits, not radio hits, but hits that were out there. They sold a lot of units. Why not? Again, preponderancy of having this whole hatred towards progressive rock. But it's okay to have hip hop and all kinds of stuff like that in, but not progressive rock. Again, this is a period of rock and roll that influenced a lot of people, and it has to be there. Okay? If not for the fact that without prog, what would you have? Well, you wouldn't have all that, later rock and roll, that, the punk scene that came to supposedly destroy prog or whatever. No. With every action is an opposite and equal reaction. We need to understand that with music too. We need to understand the linearity and the history of who influenced who and what came and when they came and why they came and what they were creating. They don't care about that. They're just, again, like I said, it's pop. They just don't like it. Next band. This one's a real surprise. The Commodores. Why ain't the Commodores in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Are you shitting me? Oh my God. A string of hit albums. Lionel Richie. Seriously. The Commodores need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Early funk scene. This is a Machine Gun album. This is great, great, great freaking music. Okay? They put in other people like Parliament, but they won't put in the Commodores. That makes no sense. These guys are a big hit. Were they considered easy listening? There's a kind of a thing against Lionel Richie because he kind of went easy listening later on. But their early music, listen to their early stuff. Amazing, amazing stuff. You cannot deter the fact that they are great. Okay? Commodores. Okay, last album. This one's a little controversial because they didn't have a lot of albums, but there's this album right here, Boston. Come on, seriously. What we're going to talk about with this band is about impact, sales of this particular album, and how important it changed rock and roll history at this particular time in 1976 when this album came out. Should they be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You bet. If you have a band like Devo being nominated, you have a band like MC5, I'm sorry, their impact is just as much, but there's a prejudice against them. They don't like Tom Schultz and what happened with Brad Delp and all the drama of the band. That all becomes a determining factor whether or not you get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It has nothing to do with the fact of what you produced. It has to do with the drama. And I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. I think it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Shame. It's pathetic. So those are my bands. Those are 15. There's many, many more. I'd love to hear what you guys think. What bands do you think belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that have been snubbed? Quite a few. And now they have this new wave of bands. Now, I'm not detesting the bands that come in, like Foo Fighters, Oasis. I like all that music. It's great. But you know what? These bands need to come in first. They were there first. And some of these bands influenced those bands. So it's like, they really need to look at who they're nominating and why they're nominating them. And again, you can nominate whoever you want. There's just fans, but they don't really listen. It's just a little select crew, a hierarchy, a bureaucratic hierarchy of who they decide who gets into the club and not. And it's a joke. It really is. And I just thought I'd rant and rave about that as a pathetic, and I'll pick certain topics over the time for ranting and raving. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you think. Love to hear what you guys have to say about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Shame. Take it easy, and that's for now.